Welcome to week 2. I hope today will be a great day, obviously. I don't, it's really going to be centered around you guys. So today the plan was to, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes good performance and then a little bit specifically stand up. I was possibly going to do a little myself, doing a performance from yours truly. Then we're going to give some critiques and we're going to do some editing, or in this case, writing. Also, if you're wondering, this old man is standing up. So imagine you're the old man, you're trying to stand up. This is me, I'm trying to help you. So here we go.
Someone who knows what they're talking about. So if you don't know what you're talking about, the audience is going to lose interest because they stop caring, right? Loud, you project. And I think you guys notice this. Like when I'm talking to my friends, I don't talk like I do when I'm talking to you guys on Zoom. I think I project even more, even though I'm not in a big room, because I like want people to listen to what I have to say. So I want to make sure they hear me. So being loud enough is a big thing.
Who were here last week, right? When we were looking at a couple stand-up comedians, we looked at some Brian Regan stuff and some Jim Gaffigan stuff and some, I forget what her name is, stuff. So what did you think was good about those things? What made you enjoy, for example, let's say Jim Gaffigan? What about his performance?
Confidence is really important. That like being like, even if you don't know what you're doing, you can make it seem like you know what you're doing just by being confident, which is like way easier said than done. But it's something that you develop as you practice and continue to do whatever it is that you perform. You get more and more confident. Like when I started teaching, I wasn't, or when I started doing like wrestling and stuff, I wasn't as confident at the beginning, but you do it more and more to get that confidence, or you just fake it really well, which some people are really good at too. Like something, you should be able to understand what they're saying. Like they should be able to be speaking clearly. But I would also say like, you want to be able to know your audience. So it's not just like that they understand what you're saying, like because it's able to be heard, but also that they understand what you're saying because it's like relevant to them, or they like get the references. I think those are important too. Cool.
Wow, we're learning a lot about comedy. Okay. One other thing is that you want to sometimes reflect how you're meant to be feeling. If I'm making a joke about how surprised I am about something, I want to make it sound like I'm surprised, or act like I'm surprised. I don't want to just go deadpan, which is part of the reason why I think you guys didn't like that the slideshow lady. Because she never really, sometimes she was pretty deadpan in her delivery, and that can also work. But for now, let's use that as an example. How to stand up, like that old man. So, in addition to doing things like sounding interested, confident, speaking loud and clear, which y'all got, so good genius brains out there. A very important thing, especially with stand up, is your pacing. So when you go from joke to joke, right? You go from setup to punch. Well, mostly when you finish your setup punchline, you move on to another setup punchline. You want to pause between them, and that way, not only can your audience laugh because your jokes are so funny, but your audience doesn't get like all caught up. And sometimes it's hard to try to pause between lines. And when I perform, I'm gonna hope I do it. I might not, because sometimes when you get nervous, you want to go faster. Because you say, "Oh, look, if I go faster, I don't have to be nervous for much longer." But pausing really makes something good, and it really shows, makes people see the jokes, right? So, okay, and you want to take your time. That's a little repetitive, but it's important to know you also want to take your time. So when you're doing your pausing, you also want to make sure you're just not going too fast. You don't want to run through it because you want to make sure your audience is able to understand what you're saying and is able to keep up with all the things you're saying. My fingers are like messing up my monkey background. Okay. Performing. I guess now I have to perform.
Yay!
Oh man, this stinks. All right, give me a second. I better remember my stand-up. I realized I didn't practice before this, so you're gonna see a failure of a man. All right, look at my Google Drive.
We're gonna model being a very supportive community, and we're all gonna laugh, and we can all unmute ourselves to laugh because I feel like it's very weird to do a stand-up set without any laughter. So we can unmute ourselves, and Chris is gonna demonstrate. Chris is gonna demonstrate a stand-up set, and then we are going to get to writing our stand-up sets. Okay, so
I would stand up for my stand-up sketch, but I already got the microphone set up here, so I'm gonna sit down. You know what? What if I try? Am I breaking the monkey background? I am the monkey. Okay, no, that doesn't work. It's better sitting. I didn't succeed like that old man. That old man apparently did better at standing up than me. Okay. Here, wait. I gotta get my microphone. This also isn't a real microphone. This is an automaton, which I hopefully didn't leave on yet. Oh, yeah. There we go. Sorry. I'm a man-child. All right. So, a while back, me and my family actually went to New York, before it became the set for the next season of The Walking Dead. And went to Ripley's Believe It or Not. And, believe it or not, people will do a lot to be not very famous. Being in a large, kind of bustling city, it already makes me relatively nervous. And I have to thank New York because they really help by giving my life ad breaks. The other thing is crossing the street with all these ad breaks. It becomes my favorite game. Look at the lights or live. Waiting in New York or walking in New York. Is weird just because everyone's going so fast all the time. It's like you're always late or out of the loop on something because everyone walks with just such purpose. It's like that, just with more Guy Fieri restaurants and Krispy Kremes sprinkled about. The other thing, in the before times, if you can recall, there were these mobs, these hordes, these murders of grown men just like standing around in Halloween costumes, simply for your viewing pleasure and also money. They don't even do much. They just kind of stand around and sweat a lot.
Glitched out mid stand-up. Did that happen to everyone else, or is it just me that's glitching?
Yeah, it's glitching for me too.
No, it's just you. I'm not getting it.
I'm on the secure Wi-Fi thing.
Me neither. It's a little bit for me.
All right, here, wait, let me try this. Okay, I'm back on a different Wi-Fi. This might work better or it might work worse. Ta-da! Okay. They also are missing parts a lot of the time of their costume. Hands, a head, literal pants is a common one. The other thing is that, this one time I was walking down this, I'm sorry, it's difficult for me to recall. This one time I was walking down the street and I saw the Cookie Monster and his head had been cut off and crudely replaced with a sweaty New Yorker's head, and he carried his own head, the Cookie Monster's head, around with him while he walked like the horseman. It's horrifying. To an international symbol of peace like that? Another time I was crossing the street and I just saw Batman tearing down Voltron. I'm so happy to see the crossover. And I mean, he was really just taking him down, and he eventually reduced him to a bunch of cardboard robot pieces and a sweaty New Yorker, as any good hero would do. So I walked another couple yards down, and I saw another Batman. And I know what you may be saying. You may be saying, Chris, oh, Chris, you are so lucky. I wish we could all be more like you. And I know we wish we could be more like me just because I'm so cool and handsome. But I saw this Batman. I have to admit, for Batman, it let himself go a little bit. So we finally get to Ripley's Believe It or Not and wait an hour in line for, I will remind you, Ripley's Believe It or Not. If I had to describe Ripley's Believe It or Not in one word, it would be hoarder. Over here's the model ships. Don't miss the ceiling lighters. We have the wall of beer steins. Okay, and in here, this is the torture room. We don't normally go in there. Believe it or not, a lot of the stuff at Ripley's is just stuff made of other stuff. Captain America. They almost never have relation either. Captain America made of car parts. A gorilla made of tires. The Predator made from China. That one didn't have much of an explanation. It just looked like a statue of the Predator in neon. If the every day was arm, leg, and head day for the Predator. But a lot of the stuff is also portraits. They of course have Miley Cyrus made of crayons, Obama made of marbles, whole wall of Obama made of marbles in their president's room. Because I love Marbama. In the same room as Marbama, there's also one of my favorites, Abraham Lincoln made of pennies. And I know what you may all be saying. You may all be saying, Chris, all pennies are brown. Well, you're wrong, you small-minded meat sacks. Some are darker brown, and others lighter brown. I like to imagine how bored, how desperate for something to do you would have to be to say, you know what, I'm going to take these stacks of pennies and sort them into light brown, lighter brown, regular brown, darker brown, and darkest brown. And then I'm going to systematically put them into a frame. And if I mess up one time and it don't look like Abraham Lincoln, I'm going to break the frame and start all over again. Or being homeless could also drive you to do that. When you enter, one thing you see is a statue of the Lizard Man. And I know you may be saying, Chris, reptilians aren't real. Well, number one, stop interrupting me. You've interrupted me so many times. But number two, this ain't no reptilian. This man is a man who spent his life mission attempting to become as close to a lizard as he can. He's spray painted scales on his back. He's probably painted himself green. He's gotten his teeth filed to sharp points by a dentist. And he got his doctor to put metal mounds in his skull to look more lizard-like, as well as fork his tongue. Who is his doctor? And why does he do this? How much money does he make in order to simply ignore the aristocratic oath? Did he skip that class? Did he miss that booklet? I like to imagine the poor doctor, and he goes out to see his next patient, and he walks into the waiting room, and the Lizard Man is there. And the Lizard Man says, Doc, scale my skin. Scale me, please. And the doc may run and run, but the Lizard Man will never give up, and he scurries down the hallway. I like to think most career paths, you can, quit. You can move to something different. The title may follow you, but, you can move on. But I think when you're a Lizard Man, there's only one place you can go, and that's just becoming a literal lizard one day and just scurrying up a tree, and you're gone. Oh shoot. I think I might have just given away his retirement plan. Don't tell him though. Don't tell him, okay? Another thing about the Lizard Man. No, I'm not the Lizard Man. I wanted to leave you, ladies and gentlemen and others, with one less golden nugget of information and more of a horse that I gave you and told you there was a golden nugget in, and then gave you a bone saw and scurried off to into a bush to watch and see what would happen. It's like that. You can trust me on that one. So, believe it or not, a while back, in medieval times, only the old people will get this one. there was this small man, midget, I don't know what the proper term is, but he was a short man, and he was a philosopher. And this philosopher was accused, tried, and punished for treason, the crime that happens all the time, but no one is sure what it is. So he did the treason, and it came time for the judge to choose his punishment. And the jury, talked amongst themselves, because of course there was a jury in medieval times. And suddenly the judge had an evil grin, as a evil judge does. And out from under his desk, he pulled out a bird cage, old bird cage. He never found a use for, and he slammed down his justice hammer. And so it was, the small midget philosopher was stuck in the bird cage in the center of town hall, and every day the judge would come by in his ham and cheese sandwich, or whatever sandwich they had around then. I don't know if the Duke of Sandwiches was around. But he sandwich, and the poor little philosopher cried out. He said, "Oh, please, please give me food." But he never did, and the
Chris, you're frozen.
I think Chris
Oh,
knows. Okay. I couldn't tell because it seemed like I glitched last time and then it just closed out of Zoom. But
Yeah, I can't.
Still frozen.
He disappeared.
oh no.
Maybe he slapped the pillow on his computer because I
Okay, I'm
literally did
back.
that. I was like, oh yay, we're back.
when did my thing end?
Oh, I think you were finishing your final. You had the philosopher
Was he in the bird cage yet?
in the bird cage. The philosopher was in the bird cage.
Well, he, so every day, the judge came by, ate his ham and cheese sandwich. And the poor little philosopher, he cried out, he said, "No, please, feed me." And every day, the poor little philosopher, he withered away, because there's not much else he can do, when you're locked in a bird cage. Until one day, he died. I know it's not a happy ending, but I mean, I don't know what you expected. He was locked in a bird cage. There was a good guy and a bad guy, and the bad guy was the one who committed treason. I think my favorite part of that story, though, is the fact that it's all true, except for the parts that I made up. And that was the end of my stand-up. That was my little final funny line.
Yeah, give it up for Chris.
Look, my microphone disappears. It becomes part of the monkey.
So let's talk about that. So first of all, give it a serious amount of love to Chris. That is really hard to do. It's especially hard to do when you don't have an audience that can clap effectively or react, and you're just kind of like shouting into the void and hoping that people find it funny. But
Hopefully that was good. You guys enjoy that?
Yes, very much so.
I think it was pretty good. I think I nailed it. So,
So just so you guys know, so that was like a 5 or 6 minute long, probably even maybe, was it like a 5 minute?
I think that one, when we timed it, was about more to 6 to 7 minutes because of the pausing. I'm not sure if I rushed it. I might have only done 5, but that was kind of like a whole routine.
Yeah.
We talked about it before, but that was. Can anyone who was here last week tell me what kind of routine that was, whether it was story or observational? It was a little bit of both. That was kind of a trick question. It was a little bit of both, but it was mostly observational. Here, wait, sorry, I'm just trying to.
So you did use a story, right? So you told a story about going to New York, but then build in a lot of observational humor. So noticing things that are silly, pointing them out. And last week, Chris talked a lot about the setup punchline, right? So, I don't know who's talking, but I'm gonna mute you for a minute because it's
Yeah. So hopefully, if you guys could remember from last week, for people who were not here last week, big summary. All we did is kind of mention that stand-up boils down to a simple formula, which is setup punchline. Now, I don't know if you noticed it, but hopefully you did, which is that I tried to format my jokes so that there was a setup and there was a punchline. Every joke had an end. You know, I was in a big city, it makes me nervous. And it doesn't help that New York has ad breaks. Things like that, right? Setup and then the joke are really what makes stand-up. And it's important because that way your audience can understand where the jokes are and they could recognize when they're meant to laugh. You just keep rambling on, and your jokes are sporadic and they don't make a lot of sense. People are not going to be able to recognize when they're supposed to laugh or what the jokes are. And so by keeping it formulaic, you keep it simple, boom shaboom, you're going to have a good stand-up if you're, hopefully, if people think you're funny. If they don't, then oopsies. But normally people think you're funny because they think I'm funny all the time, but that's the anyway.
So I was gonna just ask if there were anybody who had any specific punchlines that you thought were funny or anything that really stood out to you in that routine. Lincoln, I see your hand up, but your audio was glitching before again. So if you want to just drop in the chat if you have a question.
Also, sorry guys, I just put up a dramatic representation of what must have happened during my stand-up, which is how you guys were laughing really hard. I think this is like a reenactment, so just so you understand.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to share anything they thought was particularly funny that stood out, feel free to do so. I think people I wrote down Marblama. I just thought that was so funny. Obama made out of marbles, and just saying Marblama over and over again got me going. Also just the little notes, like saying small mighty meat sacks instead of people, like that is pretty funny too. I really liked that. Anybody else have anything that they thought was really funny that they want to share?
Did you guys notice how I paused between jokes? Right, I said the punchline and then I paused before the next setup, even if they were kind of related.
Mm-hmm. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna break up into groups in breakout rooms, and we're gonna work on our stand-up set. So we're gonna ask that everybody tries to write some jokes and tries to write a stand-up set. So we're not gonna expect you to do 7 minutes like Chris just did, but maybe a minute, because what would be awesome is if we can film them or invite people to come see them. And if that makes you really nervous, then it can just be for this class. That's also fine too. We don't have to be out of the class.
So yeah, before I break you into groups, just some recommendations when you're in groups, when you're trying to write your stand-up. I mentioned it before, but kind of the art of writing stand-up is pretty simple, which is you pick a premise and then you implant the jokes. You don't have jokes straight from your premise. You have your idea. I'm going to expect that like around this time when we're starting, it'd probably be easier to do like a story just because those are easier to come and think of than observational humor unless you had something in mind. But try to write things down and then put in the jokes. You don't need to automatically be like, snap, snap, snap. I'm writing it with the jokes. That doesn't make sense, and it's harder to put it in the setup punchline format. Write it down and act like every sentence is a punchline that is not a joke. And then you add your setups. I mean, it's like a setup. It was a role reversal, but I'm reversing the roles back. It's pretend everything is a setup, and then you put in your punchlines. So I'm gonna put you in groups. I'm not exactly sure.
I can do the groups. I'm doing them right now. So I think we'll have about 5 people in each.
Get me out.
So what we're gonna do to recap, we're gonna work on writing jokes. We're gonna help each other write jokes, and we're gonna think about how we want to perform those jokes to make people laugh. And for this, we're not gonna record anybody. It's just gonna be for funsies. This is just practice.
Let me down.
Chris, if we feel really excited about it, then maybe we can record it in our next class. So, or in one of our other classes. So for now, you don't have to feel self-conscious. We're gonna be a.
Oh wait, give me a second. You gotta see this, guys. You really gotta see this. Get ready for this one. Okay, you missed all my stock images. So right here, quick, we did that. We did this guy. He looks really happy from performing. I hope I look like that guy. But here's group editing for you guys just to see. This is what you're gonna be looking like with your little pen and your little pencil and paper. You're gonna stick out your tongue. I think real hard. Okay. I need to show you guys that stock image. I really like that one.
Thanks, Chris. That was great. Critical. All right, let's break into some groups. And yes, I made hopefully, yeah, everyone should be happy with these chill groups. Have fun. See you soon. Come back at 2:15. So that's 25 minutes from now.
I'll set a timer.
Kind of weird, guys. Yeah, I want to say I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that we didn't get to everyone and that there was some weird connection stuff. I know it's 2:30, so what I would say is keep working on your jokes. We want to give you some time next week to share out if you want to, and then we're going to transition into writing sketch comedy. We're going to be watching some different sketch comedy, so if you like Monty Python, if you like Saturday Night Live or all that, or any shows like that, we're going to be getting more into that piece and doing sketches with other people, which can maybe feel a little bit less scary than stand up by yourself. But I still encourage all of you guys to keep working on your jokes. I think you guys are awesome, and I'm really glad you came.